Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the Noon News from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Aja Goare. The man and woman found dead in their Helena home Monday night identified today, and the couple's adopted son now accused of murder. The Lewis and Clark County coroner identified the victims as 61-year-old David Muncie Taylor and 64-year-old Charla Ray Taylor. The coroner lists the manner of death as homicide, but the cause of death is pending the completion of an autopsy. Caleb David Taylor, the couple's adopted son, has been arrested. MTN's Mackenzie Frost has the details.
Caleb David Taylor was arrested late Tuesday afternoon in connection to the death of a 61-year-old man and a 64-year-old woman. Lewis and Clark County Sheriff Leo Dutton says a concerned family friend found the front door of a home on the 1300 block of Cayuse Road unlocked late Monday night, and inside, the two victims. That's when 911 was called, and Dutton says the investigation began and unfolded quickly. The couple was last seen alive Saturday.
It was a violent crime. No firearms were involved.
Federal and state agencies are all helping with this murder investigation, which Dutton says will take some time.
This is not a crime scene where you see it condensed into an hour. It takes longer than that.
Taylor is charged with 2 counts of homicide and 1 count of tampering with evidence. He is currently being held in the Lewis and Clark County Detention Center. Investigators say they are looking for another person of interest. The sheriff calling this incident tragic.
This was a mom and a dad, and these cases are not easy to work. Some of my staff knew these people personally. It was difficult, but the staff did their job, and they know to be professional and to work to a conclusion to get the county attorney the best case we can is how we're going to bring honor to them.
In Helena, Mackenzie Frost, MTN News.
Thank you, Mackenzie. And Caleb Taylor has a previous conviction for burglary for stealing thousands of dollars worth of property from a home on this same street in 2015. A man who shot a woman through her car window before leading Billings police on a chase last year now admits to the crimes. 51-year-old Stephen Kiefler pleaded guilty Tuesday to attempted deliberate homicide, criminal endangerment, and DUI. Prosecutors will recommend a sentence of 55.5 years in prison. Police were called to the area of 4th Avenue North last June. The victim, who suffered a gunshot wound to the head, told officers a man pulled up next to her and fired several shots through her window. Authorities located the suspect truck, which sped off before ultimately crashing into a building. After his arrest, Kiefler's daughter reportedly told police her father sent her a text message that day about committing suicide by cop. A sentencing date has yet to be set. Police say the suspected serial bomber terrorizing Texas is dead. Authorities say the 23-year-old suspect blew himself up in his vehicle north of Austin overnight as a SWAT team closed in on him. CBS's Nikki Batiste has more.
Police collected evidence Wednesday morning from the scene where the Austin bombing suspect blew himself up. Law enforcement sources have identified the bomber to CBS News as 23-year-old Mark Condit. Investigators say they had tracked him down to a Red Roof Inn north of Austin overnight. They were waiting for tactical teams to arrive, but when Condit left the hotel in an SUV, officers closed in on him.
As members of the Austin Police Department SWAT team approached the vehicle, the suspect detonated a bomb inside the vehicle.
Police say information they gathered over the last day or two led them to consider Condit a suspect. Surveillance teams were then able to locate the vehicle he was driving here in Round Rock, which led to the confrontation and explosion. Authorities say Condit is behind at least 5 explosions this month, 4 in Austin that killed 2 people and 1 at a FedEx facility near San Antonio earlier this week. CBS Austin affiliate KI obtained these surveillance photos. It's believed the suspect dropped off 2 suspicious packages at a South Austin FedEx office. And even though Condit is dead, he may have already planned other attacks, so the threat may not be over.
Continue to be vigilant We are concerned that there still may be other devices out there.
There was a heavy police presence in the Austin suburb of Pflugerville Wednesday, where Condit lived. Neighbors are finding it hard to believe.
Nicest families you'd want to have, nicest neighbors as you'd want to have.
Investigators say at this point they do not have a motive, and they don't know if he had any accomplices. Nikki Batiste, CBS News, Round Rock, Texas.
One SWAT member did suffer minor injuries in that incident. The fourth nor'easter in 4 weeks is taking aim at millions of people in the Northeast. Fierce winds and more than a foot of snow are in the forecast for parts of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. Hundreds of schools are closed, including all public schools in New York City. Power outages are expected, some in areas that had just had electricity restored from previous storms. And we turn now to the weather scene with Ed McIntosh, and you've got even more information on this nor'easter.
It's so big we wanted to show you a picture of it to get started today, Asia, as we take a look across that entire region. Areas of rain and snow, and you can see it anywhere from Boston, New York, pushing all the way through Pennsylvania, and then wrapping all the way back down into the Carolinas, affected with rain and heavy snow, especially on the northern tier of that weather system. At the same time, we're also watching another system all the way over as we start looking towards the California coastline. That's bringing in some heavy rain there and could also aggravate some mudslides thanks to the wildfires from last year. That system will start to affect our weather in the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll talk about that with the forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Ed. We'll check back in. The embattled Pend Oreille County Sheriff will resign as part of a plea agreement. Carl Suda pleaded no contest last week to a misdemeanor charge of family member assault for reportedly kicking his son. He also entered a deferred prosecution on a charge of official misconduct, which stems from unlawfully sharing confidential criminal justice information. The plea agreement stipulates Suda must resign as sheriff by June 1st. Suda must also serve 24 hours in jail or 3 days of house arrest, pay a fine, and complete behavioral counseling. The Corvallis man who trespassed and turned off a valve on an oil pipeline near Fort Benton 2 years ago won't spend time behind bars. Leonard Higgins received a 3-year deferred sentence Tuesday and was ordered to pay nearly $4,000 in restitution. Higgins was part of an organized effort by climate activists to disrupt pipeline operations in several northern states. 2 men who allegedly locked themselves to barrels outside the Stevens Creek Bison facility last Friday took 2 different directions in court. Joshua Rivera of Colorado pleaded guilty Tuesday to misdemeanor trespassing and obstruction. He was ordered to pay Yellowstone National Park more than $1,900. Mark Wolf of Illinois pleaded not guilty to obstructing an agency function, obstructing a government worker, and closure violations. His next court date is set for April 4th. State health officials believe over 200 people may have been exposed to tuberculosis after a Kalispell teenager was recently diagnosed. School officials notified families by email Tuesday, saying the infected student recently returned from traveling abroad. Now, this student is now in isolation as he's treated for the illness, and anyone who may have been exposed is currently being identified and screened. Tuberculosis, or TB as it's often called, is caused by bacteria and usually attacks the lungs, kidney, spine, and brain. Symptoms of TB can include a cough of longer than 3 weeks, unexplained weight loss accompanied by chills and a fever, and even death. Now, the only way to contract the disease is by close contact several hours a day with someone who has the disease. Still ahead on the noon news, another bombing attack by ISIS leaves dozens dead during a holiday celebration. Details when we come back. But first, Ed has our weather forecast. Stay with us.
You're watching MTN News with Aja Goare. Storm Tracker weather with Ed McIntosh, and farm and ranch news from the Northern Egg Network. This is the noon